Today on Robert's British Cars, we're going to try to flush out the cooling system on this Spitfire and maybe rearrange some plumbing. I just purchased this 1968 Triumph Spitfire, and after initial examination I noticed that the radiator seemed a little rusty. Fluid level in the coolant level was kind of low, and the plumbing on the heater hoses needs some love. So the first thing we're going to do here is drain whatever is in the radiator. What I did here is I attached this hose, and it's kind of sloppy on here, but it should do the purpose. And I have that going down to a pan, and I also position the pan so it's going to catch any drips from here. Let's see if I can loosen this and start draining the coolant. I'm turning, and turning, and nothing's coming out. Oh, I hear something. Still turning, turned all the way out. Let's see. Well, I can say with a high degree of confidence that there does not appear to be a lot of coolant in this radiator. While the radiator is draining, we're going to pop off some of these zip ties and work on redoing some plumbing here. What he's got going here is the vacuum line for the distributor from the carburetor is this right here. We're going to find a new home for that in a little bit. And this red wire goes from the positive side of the coil to the electric choke. And I think it can be plumbed a little bit better than what it is. So we'll get these off and then see what we can do here. So the first piece of new plumbing we're going to do here is to take this red wire that's attached to the positive side of the coil for the electric choke, and we're going to run it to the fuse box. So I got the fuse box taken out here, and what I'm going to do is go back here and find an empty terminal that will be activated when the key is turned on. And then I'm going to attach this green wire to the fuse box and run the green wire along the loom, popping it out over here, and then run it from here over to the carburetor. So what I've done is the fuse box is away from the firewall, and I have the test light plugged in to an empty bus on the fuse, this fuse. The bottom one I already burned out, so I don't want to move this too much. So what we're going to do now is see if that light lights when I turn on the key. Boom. One more time. Boom. Okay, so that is where I'm going to put this end of the green wire, run it along over there to the electric choke. Let's get started with that process. Okay, if you can see in there, there's my green wire, and I have it attached to the back of the fuse box. Okay, so then I'm going to take the slack out of the wire like that and put the fuse box back in, and we'll run the green wire. Here's my green wire. Here's the electric choke. We put that wire on here. Ta-da! And let's follow it. There it goes around there. It goes into the black loom and nicely taped. And then it goes over way into the fuse box way over there. Okay? Last thing, we can just pull out the red wire that we don't need anymore. Okay, one more test. And now for the final test, we have our test light. If I can reach in here and grab the ignition, we put our test light on the electric choke, turn on the key, Eureka! It's working as it should. Let's move to our next project. The next thing I want to look at is this vacuum line. This vacuum line was up here zip tied like this and went from the distributor all the way around the back to here. And I don't like the way that looks. So let's come up with a new plan. So after looking at this from another angle, being the opposite side of the engine, you can see the vacuum hose, right? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this vacuum line off of here, okay? And I'm going to start on the carburetor side and bring it along to the fuel line and run it piggybacked on the fuel line. Okay, with zip ties, not my favorite. Run it along the fuel line and back to here. So let's do that and see how it comes out. I'm going to leave a little bit of slack in it. And let's just take this little zip tie. Boom. Diddy boom. Maybe. A faulty zip tie. Okay, check it for slack. I'm just gonna go like that. I'm gonna leave it not tight on there. There's one. There's two. There's three. There's four. And now we're just gonna take this and put it on the distributor. Where is it? Right there. And we can call that good, but probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim that hose down a little bit someday, not today. Next, we're going to look at the choke cable. Again, zip tied to the heater hose. And of course, there is no manual choke on this car, so the end is just here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the cable free. And then I'm going to either store it behind the battery or store it inside the car up under the dashboard, because I may be putting the original carburetor back on and I'll need that cable. As you can see, our coolant has stopped draining. So I will remove my draining hose, okay? And I will close my petcock. I think that's what it's called. There, that's closed, okay? And I'm gonna take that pan and I'm gonna reposition it all the way over here underneath these hoses, because I'm gonna replumb the heater hoses. The plan is I'm gonna pull this hose off of here and try to aim it down there at the pan, and that way any water in here or in the manifold will come out through this T and go down in the pan, and I'll be able to reclaim as much as I possibly can. So I'm gonna leave the camera roll and we're gonna see how hard it's gonna be to get this hose off of there. Not bad. We put this down and well, no coolant so far. Oh, that's right, this hose is kinked. So I'm gonna hold that hose kinked and pull it down into the pan. And yes, here, I'll show you. Some fluid came out right there running off the frame, but it is all dripping in the pan. I don't like to get coolant on the floor in the garage because I have a dog and a cat. And as much as I try to keep them out of here, you know, they get into everything. Okay, I got the hoses out and this was the T. It's kind of like an L. It's supposed to be a T. That's broken and corroded. Looks like I'm gonna have to order a new one from Uncle Moss. So over here, this is the outlet coming from the heater valve. This is the hose coming from the heater core. And that is the pipe coming from there, okay? That's gonna heat up our intake manifold. Anyway, so we need a hose that's going to come to some sort of T here. But I want that T to be, well, let me get the old one. Okay, here's the old one. I want this to be something like that. Okay, well, I got a hose on there, and then this blue hose is going to be shorter, and then a longer one going from the new T to the manifold. Okay, so let's go online and order a new one of these. Well, after going online and trying to find a T, I realized there is no T. None of the parts places have anything that looks like this because this does not exist in Spitfire world. This was something manufactured by a previous caretaker of this car. Let me explain. So here is the part that I was searching for. This is not a T. This is the intake manifold. This is the original intake manifold that the car came with. Guess where that goes? There you go. Actually, I think it might go like this, because all of the literature and all of the stuff online I could find showed the intake manifold has a T at the end, 2 outlets. The intake manifold on the Weber only has 1 outlet. So they cut the T off the original intake manifold. Since there is no part to order, I went to my auto parts store and I got a nice shiny plastic one. Here's the plan. Okay, this is the hose that came from the heater valve that was on here. This is the return pipe that goes over here to the water pump. The water circulates that way, okay? This is the water that comes out of the heater. This hose is supposed to go there. The water going into the heater is supposed to come from the intake manifold. So what is going to happen is this. I'm going to take this T, put it this way. From the T, we're going to go to the heater valve. From the heater, we're going to go to the return pipe. And from this part here of the T, we're going to go to the intake manifold. So let's get started. While we're in here, we're going to replace this hose too. So we'll take all of this off. I took the coil off because I was wondering what this black stuff was. So I take this ring off and we have, oh look, the same material used to make the glove boxes on this car, Gorilla Tape, wrapped around the coil. So the coil would be larger and this would fit. I think I can do better. Let me show you my solution to the duct tape wrapped around the coil. I cut a strip of rubber from this old inner tube and placed it underneath the clamp. So now there is a nice tidy cushion between the clamp and the coil. Okay, let's do a quick review. Let's see. We rerouted the throttle cable. We replumbed the fuel line and the vacuum line. We replumbed the breather from the valve cover to the carburetor. And we moved the distributor, and we cleaned up the heater valve, put on all new heater hoses, and then plumbed them in the correct fashion. Side note, we also took out the throttle cable. We took out the choke cable, and that's tucked up under the dashboard. And I removed the wires that were going to the battery that were the power source for the radio. Also, we rerouted the wire for the electric choke. All we have left to do now is flush the radiator. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the radiator and take it out in the yard and squirt a garden hose through it. While I'm in here, I'm going to take off that fan, remove the pulley, and give it a nice coat of paint. It's looking a little too rusty for me. Well, we got the radiator back in, we got the water pump pulley painted, say that 3 times fast. We got the hoses connected. It's time to juice it, bring it up to temperature, burp it, and call it a day. I'm not going to videotape that. You've seen it 1,000 times. Anyway, next video we're going to do the clutch cylinder, master cylinder, fix the wiper motor, and do something with the interior. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching Robert's British Cars, and hope to see you next time.